All right.
We back at it, man.
Back at it. All right. Awesome.
Here we go. So this will be good stuff. Good stuff. Let me just pull up what I want to look at here. Okay. All right. So I want to take off with this thing. This is kind of like, I thought of this title, which was The Bachelor and the Married Dude, something like that. Maybe seeing The Bachelor might get some people clicking on it for no reason.
Yeah.
Just because there's a popular show out there. But anyway.
Yeah.
But I thought it would be good for us to talk about marriage, talk about men, but from both perspectives. From the perspective of someone who's been in marriage for a while. I've been married, 25 years. Ups and downs, a lot of downs, but more recent ups. So it's a win. It really is. And then from your perspective, who's cautiously waiting for God to, point you in the right direction in terms of a woman and stuff like that, because you haven't sworn off women or anything like that. You got plans. But actually, I'll let you speak to that for a second.
Yeah.
So you're not married, but you plan to be. Tell us a little bit about that. Like, what are you waiting for? Like, when will you know it's time to get in there?
Well, as first starting off, looking at the history that I've been through, my dad started off, he married young, married my mother young. She was actually in high school. He just had graduated. So, I think he was between 20. He just got a job at the steel mill. So he had prepared, he had resources set aside, and he was able to take her on right before she graduated and marry her. To me, the timing of that and the culture and society that supported that, there was a community support system around. He had a large family structure. We had multiple houses in South Bend. He had a focus that drove him to pursue that angle. Okay. Currently, today, with me, I've seen him grow up and seen how things develop in the household. It taught me some things about life. And when I started pursuing these angles, I started seeing more.
Okay.
Because a platform allowed for me to be able to ask tougher questions as a man and not just go out and just start reproducing. Some of the questions that I had to ask was, what is my purpose for life?
Okay.
I started diving more into scriptures because I'm pretty much the spiritual one in the family. So I had to be able to develop myself, my identity. And it wasn't just based upon a desire to get married, but a desire to understand who I was and what my purpose in creation.
So you're asking all these questions
Yeah.
pre-marriage, where a lot of guys are getting into it, myself included, getting into marriage first, and then realizing I got to be able to answer all these questions.
Yep, and you're absolutely right. And to me, I was vacillating back and forth, obviously, because growing up, athlete, we were both pretty handsome guys. You know what I'm saying? So I had plenty of options, but I realized there was a void that was still sitting inside of me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And what happens is, so the void that was, because I had to pursue solving that problem, and after one failed relationship, I said, you know what, let me pull back. You know what I'm saying? I've invested a lot in here. I've gone all the way. All the information I was given did not produce the results that I wanted. So guess what? I'm going to pull back and reassess this thing. And that's what I did for many years, is assess what is the purpose of these relationships and how to do it. And I noticed during that time the culture shifted. So when the culture shifted, that means finances, resources, support systems, all that stuff changed. And so I had to readjust. And I realized as a man, I said, you know what? Men can play the long game different than women. You know what I'm saying? So I had to assess myself. I said, when I'm in my early 20s, 25, I said, you know what? I'll decide whether I want to pursue a wife in my youth or as a older, more mature man. And I said, you know what? I can do that as a mature man and still get the same or greater results.
Okay. So I did the other way. I did it like we said. I did the other way, and I realized obviously that I had a lot of growing to do, but that doesn't mean I didn't have any spiritual sense of anything like that. When
you grew up in the church.
Yeah, I grew up in church for one. Two, my wife and I, we got married real early. You know, she was pregnant, so I was already living in sin with her and stuff, that sort of thing. And so we had to repent of that. But a switch turned in me. You know, it's like, okay, I'm gonna man up and take responsibility.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
I went into marriage with that focus. And my parents were telling me, you don't have to marry her. Just take your time, step back for a second, and just analyze. Which, in a sense, might have been a good thing, but at the same time, I was diving into duty, and that's one of the things I've learned about myself. I'm a duty bound sort of Christian, which you have to be careful with in some ways, but I do have a strong sense of duty.
That's good.
For my wife, though, she was getting the opposite message. Her parents were telling her, "You must get married. This is the only way, man. I mean, you get married, or I don't know what they were going to do."
Yeah.
And so the idea of kind of like the bride I love, for me, that was being smothered with a forced responsibility of having to marry me.
Yeah.
You know, and so I didn't realize how much that was going to affect our marriage for decades. You know, and so but yeah, so that's where we came from. But then obviously we're kids basically, and so I had to learn a lot about how to be a father, how to be a husband. And I think I picked up on the father thing much easier than I picked up on the husband thing.
Yeah.
Because kids are a bit easier,
Yeah.
honestly.
To read.
Like, they have to listen to you.
Yeah.
Your wife doesn't.
Kind of.
Supposed to,
Yeah.
but just doesn't. You know. But not to mention, you know, she has kind of that mindset of is he someone worth listeing to?
Yeah.
Whereas your children, they don't ask that question.
Sure.
Let them try to say that to you.
Exactly.
Pop! You know.
Exactly.
So that's where. So you know, there are things I assessed over time, but I'm assessing them in the trenches.
Yeah.
And so the difference between, you know, people on your side of it and my side of it is whatever I realize that could have been better, should have been better, whatever, I know I must live with it. Whereas in your situation is whatever you realize could be better, should be better, you can now choose better, right? And I have to allow the Lord to create it better, to let it be better, and become better and grow better. So
that's a great analysis. And for me, I think that's what it comes down to, is that there's no right or wrong way to walk this out. The goal is to learn and grow. That's all it comes down to. Now, growth can be painful, obviously, but growth can be a little smoother. And I think for me, when I realized how much pain, because I had a teacher by the name of Dr. Creasy. He told me years back, he was like, "Ryan," he said, "you better be careful. Don't play around with these women, man. They lead you to poverty." I was like, "What is this?" And I was, young. I didn't.
Who is this wise man? Who is this wise man?
Yeah, I was trying to process it all, and he, because obviously, we talked about seeing from a position of wisdom.
Yeah.
He could see, okay, this young man doesn't understand everything.
Right.
He doesn't see these things. And so for me, I think that's what we as men are supposed to do, is to learn the lessons and then be able to share them with the younger generation, so that they can actually hopefully learn and save for themselves.
Right. And we got to be willing to have these conversations, you know what I'm saying? And I know the guys that are the age that we were hoping to get to, they're not sitting down watching videos like this, unfortunately. Some of them are.
They will.
And I'm hoping for that, but I want them to get off the game for a second. And do that and invest in something like this. I play video games too. But it's second to improving who I am as a man, so I can lead my family well, and all that sort of thing. It's second to that. There's space for all of it. So let's dive right into it and make my note here. But so you don't get married and all of a sudden become a good leader. You know what I mean? You don't. And so the question kind of is, how do you develop? Have you thought about how do you develop leadership before having someone to lead?
Yes, 100%. And that's why I started mentoring young men and working with people in different areas. One of the things I realized is that obviously you don't know everything. So I have to find somebody that has done it before. I literally chose to work with a pastor who was married and sat underneath him, worked at his house, and worked with him for years in helping him build and establish a ministry, just so I could pay attention to what it takes to be in a marriage. So I can learn without actually having all the emotional, mental, physical, financial investment. that goes along with it. So for many years, shout out to Eric Sproul, who gave me some guidance in that area. I learned a lot from him, and many other pastors along the way. And so for me, during that time, I realized mentorship is absolutely crucial. It's like an apprenticeship, So I believe young men should sit underneath an older man or a more mature man that has knowledge in the area of marriage and the development, so they can develop and see the skills play out. Because it's a skill to be able to learn how to articulate. It's a skill to be able to maintain passion in a relationship. It's a skill because Bible says for me, when you're dealing with husbands, love your wife according to knowledge. And I think what we lack in today's society is the Christian value-based system expressed for young men in such a way that they can see it. Because most of the young men I've mentored and dealt with and talked to, they haven't had a father figure in the house. So they haven't seen it. So they're learning from pornography. They're learning from their friends. They're learning from some other, movie or show. And they don't even get a chance to see a healthy, balanced, solid relationship expressed. And so I had to figure out how to find it. God pointed me to it. And I believe that's one of the key things I developed along the way.
Now you tapped into something real quick here. So, how hard it is when you feel like you haven't seen a good relationship. Now, my parents have been together. How old am I? How old is my brother?
Generation.
I'm trying to do this math. So like 49, 50 years. I think next year is their 50th wedding anniversary.
Congratulations.
I appreciate that. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's
Good
awesome.
for them. Good for them.
Exactly.
But when I was growing up, they sounded like they were going to get a divorce every 5 months.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and so in my mind, I felt like, did I see a good marriage? Now they're still together and they're happy, but. I was left thinking. I'm like, did I see a good marriage? I saw a ton of bickering. I saw a ton of complaining, and I remember saying to myself that there's certain things that I didn't want to see. And when my wife does some of the same things my mom did that I didn't like, it extra irks me because it's like it's a previous wound on top of which is buried. Which is digging in right now. And so, so when you bring up what it is you haven't seen, that plays a lot into what your view of marriage is going to be. And you've got to, I'd say now, but now I'm on this side of it, and I can say this, and this is one of the things we want to tell young men, is that you want to deal with what's wounded you and heal it.
I agree.
Right. And, not everything has to be trauma.
No.
But there are even things that are irksome. Those are tiny wounds, but still, have you ever gotten a paper cut? Tiny wound that hurts a lot.
Yeah, a lot of them.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Have you ever gotten a scab on something, but then it gets infected? Tiny wound hurts a lot.
Yeah.
So the size of the wound doesn't matter, but you can let it fester and it becomes something more than you ever wanted it to be.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing about the wounds is that when you're dealing with men, we have unseen wounds, emotional, mental, physical, that accumulate over a period of time. And to be able to address that, we have to develop the voice, the words, the skill sets to be able to deal with it. And one of the things that I learned is just learn how to control my tongue, learn how to identify and discern. This is a problem. If I don't learn how to address it, to work with somebody, then that's going to be a problem. I mean, everything from as simple as, cleaning out the shower after you get done.
Right.
Putting your dishes in the dishwasher. Obviously with every man, leaving the seat up, no, put the seat down. But, it's little things along the way that you learn how to then tactfully communicate those things, and not take offense. Because that was the biggest thing for me, is being able to taking too much offense to things. Because I want it done, I want things done. When I was younger, I used to give people 2 minutes on a call and it'd be like, if they didn't say what I needed to hear, hang up, gone. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I understand that. So I had to learn how to be patient. And God worked on me.
So now we're talking about patience.
Yeah.
We're talking about understanding what your wounds are and doing something about them. So these being components of good servant leadership.
Yeah.
I think the other thing is, if we want to be good want to be good leaders, even before falling in love, we have to learn how to be good servants of someone else.
I agree.
You know, we got to learn to serve. You know, serving in a church is a great thing.
Yeah.
For a young man to do. Like, so you start to understand what kind of the value of it. You know, one of the things that's benefited me as a pastor is loving the pastors that I've had before me.
Yeah.
And really appreciating them, coming alongside of them, and even if there are parts of their vision that I didn't necessarily agree with, I understood it was their vision.
Yeah.
And I was just going to support them.
Yeah.
And if I ever had my own, I would do it a different way.
Yeah.
In some ways, but in general, I was going to support them because I was committed to that. And so, if I can support someone in that way, I want to lead well enough that my wife will support me in the same way that I've been supported. And I know what to look for, I know what to ask for, and I know it's not unreasonable to want that because I've operated in service before. So that's advice I would give to to any man, young or you know. There's a lot of newly single people. We have a couple that's new to our church right now, older than me, and told me that they're about to have their, I don't know, like just like 5-year anniversary or something like that.
Wow.
You know, and I'm like,
wow,
I forget. There's a 50% divorce rate out there.
Yeah.
Okay. And so there's a lot of bachelors that are older than me right now. You know, there's a ton of them. And so this isn't really just for young men. Yeah. This is also just for men. Yeah. Because there's a ton of men that want to do it better the next time.
I agree.
They want to do it better the next time. They want to lead better the next time. Or they want to at least be with someone who's not going to be as combative or whatever. You know, stuff like that. Yeah. At the end of the day, the divorce rate for second marriages is still higher than the divorce rate for the first marriages. And the divorce rate for third marriages is still higher than both of those. So that means usually people aren't realizing what their part of the problem is. And so if you want to undo that, then you must self-analyze and self-reflect and identify whether it's the wounds or the leadership needs and stuff like that, and then go into it ready.
I agree.
Because we got a family at our church right now. Each of them are on their 4th marriage, and they are incredibly happy. They've been married for a while.
Wow. And, you know, you bring out a great point. When you're dealing with the bachelor situation, man, there's so many variables that come into play with social media communication strategies. Because back in the day when we grew up, you know, you didn't have social media. You didn't have all these other things that can influence somebody all day, 24 hours a day in the palm of their hand. And so when you're dealing with what we're solving here and what you've expressed is that we have to encourage men to solve these problems in their own lives and so that they can be in position mentally and physically and spiritually to lead. It's like opening a business, okay? You know, if you open a business, you're running a business, you want things to get done. If you don't know what the tasks are that needs to, for it to be productive, if you don't know what your customer wants, if you don't understand the product that you're serving, then what happens is you're going to go out of business. And so no different than with the marriage, even though it's under a covenant relationship, is that we need to be able to say, okay, these are the values that are necessary to establish and maintain a high quality relationship with a woman. Now, that's one side of the story. The other side of the story is how is she going to prepare herself for marriage? And there's a challenge.
Yeah, we're going to have to talk about that one too. Actually, probably next. Before we get to that, let me say there's one more thing I would say men need to develop to prepare themselves to be good leaders, either before marriage or even while they're in marriage. They've got to learn some resilience. Oh yeah, they got to learn some resilience. I was doing some research. You know, I loved John Gottman studies. I love them because I mean, he literally did the science of it, man. He observed thousands of couples in a marriage lab and set cameras on them and microphones on them and all that kind of stuff and track their facial expressions, not to mention their their conversations and all that. That's evidence to me. Okay? I want to see that. And one of the things that he found is that men get flooded really easily. Okay, like we easily get overwhelmed with too much contention and criticism and all that kind of stuff. And so we're the first ones to check out. Like, no. What do you want? Fine. We start saying fine a lot and okay a lot. Even if it's not fine, nor is it okay. Exactly. But it's what shuts the situation up the fastest. And so men need to learn some resilience, because what happens if that if you have to keep shutting down, either you just become weaker, which is not appealing to your wife.
Yeah, exactly.
Women don't want weak, or you become resentful, which is not appealing to your wife because she doesn't want to feel like she disgusts you all the time.
Exactly.
Okay, you can't have either. You can't have both of those things.
And that's a great point because we're teaching one another how to respond to the other. When you're dealing with your wife, you're teaching her how to respond to you. She will test you to see where you're at.
Yes,
Because that's what she's a weaker vessel. She has to be able to feel comfortable with certain things that she's concerned about. And there's no way that she can articulate, hey, I need you to show me how you're going to do this. If you do that, then it's action and we're playing. But she wants to be able to see it in live. And so what happens is they have to test you to see, are you going to respond in a particular way? Yeah. And so that's what a lot of that goes down to. If men understand that when they come into a relationship, they're going to expect it. And then they'll be prepared to say, okay, I know she should be testing me here. Matter of fact, I'll preemptively go test.
Yes, and now you're talking about you're preparing yourself for these things so that you can stand in the pocket when needed to. Yeah, I love that. And so they say in the stats that 80 to 85% of the men are the ones that are guilty of what they call stonewalling. Oh yeah, which is basically withdrawing, living in the garage, living on the fishing boat, whatever it is, you pull away. Okay, so you basically emotionally abandon your wife. It's a death sentence for your marriage. A death sentence. Someone who's learned resilience can learn how to, like we said, stay in the pocket, or they can learn how to actually pull away for a moment, time out themselves. Say, you know what? I'm getting real mad right here. So before I do something absolutely bonkers that nobody can handle, I'm gonna step it away. But I'm coming back. Yeah. Understand? I'm not running away. I'm not retreating. I'm not giving up. None of that stuff. I'm going to the penalty box. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because I'm boiled over right now. Right with the boil over. Yep. Yeah. And then I'm gonna bring myself back and get back into this game, back into this fight, and we can see how it goes from there. I think those are leadership qualities in general that people need. Yeah, and what you're talking about is honing them specifically for someone that you have to be with for the rest of your life. That's the goal. That's the goal. So to do that, you have to. What I've seen done successfully is be able to shift the energy. And what you're talking about is first being to identify the energy within ourselves. Okay, I'm getting angry. So how do I shift this energy from anger to purpose? And how do I shift her bitterness or anger towards me into joy and happiness? That's the real game and dynamic that's being played. That's the dance that's being done. Dude. Yeah. Yes. But most people find they can't stop themselves from getting angry in that moment. What am I going to do with the anger? Yeah. Am I going to let it subside, or am I going to channel it into something good? Like anger can be a good thing when you let it channel you into doing the right things. Like you should be angry enough when people think about Jesus turning over the tables and all that stuff. Yeah. He was angry enough at seeing people getting taken advantage of that he did something about it and said, "I'm getting that out of here." And so if a husband gets angry enough to get filth out of his house, to get demonic things out of his house, like, I'm sick of this, and then he removes evil from his house. Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. Exactly. Okay? Get that kind of anger. Otherwise, if your anger is just going to turn you to being vile towards your spouse or vile towards your kids, then you might as well back away and let that sort of thing subside. And you bring out a great point, is that righteous indignation. But the thing that I realize that we have to work at as men is be able to sit in that situation and understand, again, you said it before, we're not wrestling against flesh and blood. Right. We're dealing with spirits, man. We're dealing with principalities, rulers, wicked rulers in high places. The influences that have infiltrated men's marriages is so subtle sometimes we can't even discern that a spirit is working through the woman. Right. We have to be able to say, okay, you're off today. Why? And I'm off today. Why? Exactly. Why? And so if we can happening? Exactly. If we can spiritually put our finger on it, then we can address it accurately. And I think that's the key. As further as we develop in our communications with our wives and friends and family, people, just people in general, is be able to pinpoint the exact issue and then address that exact issue without hurting
the ones that we love.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I'm gonna check the camera, and then start the next section.
Awesome.
Hey, for it to just stop recording. Oh, it's still going. There we go, Jesus. Hey, man.
That's a
It's
win.
still going. All right, cool.
So you like a clap or something?
Now, so I'm writing the times down, so I'll know exactly when to look at, because I've got it synced up here.
Oh, sweet.
So I've got the camera check here, and then at about 25, 35, we'll start the new topic, which is submission.
This is awesome.
I'm loving it.
Production, man.
Yeah, right. Here we go. So to go from leadership, every leader needs people that will submit to their leadership.
Yeah.
Okay? Submission still today is a tough word for people to swallow.
Yeah.
It's better. I'd say it's better than it used to be because with some of the really far left agenda stuff that's out there, there are a lot of women bucking against it, saying, "No, I still want a man to take care of me. I would love to be that home mom and for my husband to make a bunch of money and I just stay home and take care. I'm fine with that. Stop speaking for all of us.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, but having someone take care of you and pay bills for you and let you be an at-home person, that doesn't necessarily equal submission. Okay, so we got to talk about this biblical word submission. Okay,
Yeah.
so you being unmarried, me being married, some would say that the idea you would desire for submission from your wife is going to be almost a pipe dream compared to what you can expect to get. What do you think about that?
Well, and that's the thing. It's so vast that's a very broad topic. But to narrow it down, when you're dealing with, for me as a man, single, being able to assess the nature of women, specifically here in the United States of America, across multiple demographics, obviously cultures and stuff like that, because we're a mixing pot. We have a modernized women's mindset.
All right, so you're talking about American society women. Right?
Yeah, just
okay.
Because there's different cultures and they have different rules and how they maneuver. But for the American mindset right now, it's the culture that has been pushed on majority of women and propagated has been one of how they see submission as, not all of them, but the majority of them, see submission as a sign of weakness or giving up. They want to obtain a certain level of strength and identity that is separate from men. And so that's what has been pushed on a lot of women, and they can identify with that, with boss babe mindset. So if a man is pursuing a woman like that, he is not going to get submission in the sense of a covenantal relationship. He has to be presented into her in a way where she sees him as a leader in business. So if you're a CEO of a business, she will then say, okay, constructively from her mind, I can submit to that. Why? Because her framework has been built off of he presents high level certain attributes of leadership in this category, whether it be finances, cars, people working underneath him, so on and so forth. This is a category that most women have been conditioned to submit to. In marriage, on the other hand, covenantal relationship, I see that they have, there's a few women around that have been trained and understand the value of submitting to a husband. Now, they could be making more money or less money, it doesn't matter, but they understand the role of a husband as the leader of the household and the leader of the relationship, and they were able to clearly discern the differences. Not every woman does that. It's a very, very small number.
Okay, so it sounds like you're saying, so for American society women right now, what you've observed at least is that it seems that they understand this big CEO concept that come under submission to that, almost because they're the ones signing your paychecks, or they're the ones that are wielding power and they can get rid of you as soon as they want to, whatever. And now I'm gonna extrapolate from that a bit. So to transfer that over to a marriage and say that, would you say that you believe women would have an easier time submitting to a man who's positioned himself in such a lofty manner,
Oh, yeah.
as opposed to women that are stuck with a man of more moderate means.
And that's you put it well. And what the social media today has done is condition women to believe that by pursuing a man who has a certain amount of financial means, they're going to get the best of the best. And they've also been conditioned in such a way where they are competing against other women for this man.
Right.
So there's an actual reward system inside their mind that's created. So they see this online and they see this social dynamic and they see the rewards of other women that have pursued this, and they understand, okay, if I go this route, even if I fall, I can go back to this conventional route. And so most women have been channeled directly into, in essence, being pimped out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So for me, that's the. I can go into the cultural, the systematic ways of how it's been done, but generally, in summary, that's what's going on. And so when you're looking at the leadership, if men are going to pursue women like that, they have to position themselves in such a way where they're financially stable. That's why most of men are young men or men today. They're just stacking their money. Mm-hmm. They understand that they have to be in such a way financially stable, mentally dominant over these women, so that they can actually feel like they're getting the best deal. And
so that's kind of what leads us to one of the situations we're having in society right now, though, is where men aren't desiring to marry women.
No.
One, because, let's talk about the financial thing.
Yeah.
It's hard to get yourself to a financially strong place right now.
Oh, yeah.
Especially right now.
Oh, yeah.
The economy.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Crazy.
I told someone how much I'm paying for my house right now. Yeah. It's not a big gigantic house, it's a moderate house, but I told someone how much I'm paying for my house right now. He about lost his mind.
Yeah.
Because it's different right now.
Yeah.
It's different right now.
Yeah.
And so we have people not getting married because of that.
Yeah.
The financial thing that you talked about. And then people want to build their status to a place that's worthy of being a leader or worthy of being followed. But that's hard to do right now too.
Yeah.
Especially if you're not, if you take personality types, not everyone is born a leader. Not even half people are born leaders,
Exactly.
Yet half of everybody in a marriage is supposed to be a leader.
Exactly.
That half being the men.
Yeah.
And so what we want to do is teach men how to be good leaders, but then how to, that's what we talked about first. Now we're talking about how can you extract submission from a society of women who largely have not been taught to be submissive, have largely seen the word submit as something bad, have been influenced by men who have used their power for the wrong things. Many women have been underneath men who have just demanded submission or else in terrible situations in the workplace. The idea of sleeping your way to the top, just for an example, is an idea that's only associated with men sleeping with women, sleeping with men to get higher up in position. You don't think about that with men doing that with women for that case.
Yeah.
And so, which implies, sure, you can take it on one side and say, oh, women are just selling themselves. But the other implication is that men have developed this invisible ceiling, like, unless I'm going to get this, then, Now, I'm not saying this is all men at all. I'm not saying this at all.
Yeah.
I'm saying that society has pushed some of these ideas.
Oh, yeah.
So women have, in a sense, mentally have have learned to protect themselves a little bit. But now it's coming out that, in our church for a while, it was very difficult for women to even be able to say what a submissive woman was. Because everything that it sounded like a submissive woman was, it just sounded very doormat-like. That's the most popular phrase I ever hear when someone's talking about submission. Doormat, doormat, doormat. But that's not, but submission, like we were talking about earlier, it's sub and mission. Come underneath, think of a submarine going underwater. Yeah. Come underneath the mission that your husband is. And the mission of your husband is, every husband has the same mission. Yeah. Which is to lead a successful family. Yeah. To have a great marriage and grow children that become great productive members of society that love the Lord and then teach their children to do the same thing as well. There's nothing bad about that mission at all. And so there shouldn't be anything wrong with coming underneath it, but it's accepting that role of support. But and I know I'm talking for a while. Let me say this one last thing real quick, is that, when we're talking about submission too, this is in a help meet mode. Yeah. And this is helper like the Holy Spirit helps us. The women are taking on a role similar to that. Yeah. When you look at the word that they use for help me over in the Old Testament, it's very similar to words that they use talking about how the Holy Spirit was a helper. Exactly. Yeah. And so like the idea of being a woman in a relationship is a very powerful thing. And when God looked at man and said, "You're not good by yourself." There wasn't no woman there. He just saw a man by himself doing the good Lord only knows what. Yeah. And he was like, no. Nope. No. Yes. I'm making you a woman, and we're doing it now. Exactly. Whatever it was. Yeah. And so then the man and the woman together was a good thing. And so the submission doesn't have to be a doormat thing. It shouldn't be a doormat thing. It should actually be a woman understanding her power, coming underneath the vision that God has given her husband, and her being the most critical component of making that vision come to life.
I agree. When you're dealing with what Christ has said in submission, the greatest among you should be your servant. When you're serving, people forget the system that God has put in place. Because if you look at the system that's been put in place by God versus the world, God has put in, like, if you've ever seen the recycle sign, where they have the exactly arrows going around. It's like a circle. Everything serves one another naturally. When you're looking at the trees, they work with the ground, air, and water. All this stuff is naturally part of the process. Yeah. When you're serving one another, it is going to produce a bountiful blessing. When things naturally move, it flows easily. What I find is a lot of times that there is this hierarchy in the mindset where either women or men have framed it where only one serves upward. Everything is about serving. Service is only done upwards. The scripture requires us to be able to submit one to another. So when you're dealing with a husband submitting to his wife in godliness, a wife submitting herself to her husband, it is a state of serving one another. And to me, I think that's where we need to be able to shift our understanding from the world's way of doing it to Christ's way of doing it. And
yes, keep talking. You're saying the thing.
Yeah. And for me, I think the key that I look for in my mindset is that if we're serving one another in submission, then it takes away the stress of trying to do everything by ourselves. Yeah.
So there's a scripture that sometimes it gets lumped in Ephesians 5 and 22 is the big scripture. Wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands. And some people include verse 21 with the instructions to the wife and marriages, which saying submitting yourselves one to another in the fear of God. That's talking to church people submitting to one another, and then specifically husbands and wives, instructions for marriage, with wives submitting to husbands and husbands loving wives sacrificially. Yeah. But you touched on something important, and I was listening to someone else talk about marriage the other day, one of the most important things they found and observed is that the thing that they found was most critical in marriage is working and lasting and actually thriving. Yeah. It wasn't conflict resolution and solving all the problems. It really wasn't. Yeah. There are happily married people that have tons of problems. Exactly. And they don't argue well. Exactly. They fight ugly. And you're like, how can they last? Because they have this one thing in common. They really are best friends with each other. Yeah. They are great friends with each other. And so the idea of being friends with each other is, even in the spirit of Christian friendship, is that we find ways to submit to one another in the sense of, I care about what's going on with you, and I'm willing to put myself last very often so that you can have what you need. Yes. And then you care about me and you're willing to put yourself last very often so that I can have what I need. And so that has to exist between a man and a woman, a husband and a wife first. Yes. And then from that spirit, I'm going to step into the role God's given me because me being submissive to my husband is what's best for him, and me leading my wife sacrificially and loving her sacrificially is what's best for her.
Yeah.
I am choosing to submit, we're submitting one to another by following God's standard here. It's nuanced and tricky.
It's very tricky.
But at the same time, it's the best.
It is. And you bring out a good point, because you're describing the right way of doing it versus this is what I've seen, is that when somebody is doing it as far as serving one another in the right way, everybody's building. This is it's a situation that comes in pride, ego, hurt, something tries to infiltrate inside that, and one person either pulls back or another person puffs up, And what happens is that it destabilizes that flow. And so for me, I think that's the biggest thing as we assess things. How has the enemy tried to attack that? How has the enemy tried to pull us away from serving in the capacity to love our wives and the wives love their husbands, and that is extrapolated obviously to the children, to the community at large. It starts from the husband and wife. If they do it right, then everything else comes from it. The entire country starts to do it right. And it's into your individual household. And so for me, I think that's the challenge is that how can we continue to be able to really manage that process? And, because managing the process as from what I've seen done well from husbands and other men that I've worked with, is that you stated earlier, they learn how to control their response, they communicate well, and they seek to understand what's going on. And once they have that basis, then they move with godly position, godly authority to direct the relationship or solve the problem, whatever it happens.
Yes, good. I'm glad you brought that up, because I wanted to make sure we came back and answered then the question.
Yeah.
How do you extract submission from your wife? And I think it's from kind of what you said there. One, having control of yourself as a man, having that resilience, having dealt with previous wounds, and so now you understand your triggers. You don't allow yourself to be triggered very easily. Letting your anger be directed into something that either clears out evil tables out of your house, or something that you throw yourself in the penalty box till you calm down and you get back in the game. Those are the things that have to happen. And then additionally, and really importantly, becoming someone who can serve your wife. As a man, if you can be someone who can serve your wife and you can submit to her in terms of Christian service, then you can draw her submitting to you in terms of wifely duty.
I agree.
That's the difference, right? We should be submitting to one another in Christian service. She should be submitting to us in wifely duty as we sacrificially love over her in Christian, Christ-like love.
And one thing you did mention earlier before we began this conversation was setting those healthy boundaries. And I would like for you to break that down and kind of go into that more. But I know for a fact healthy boundaries is going to be crucial in how we go about communicating those, the relationship dynamics, because it's an exchange. And this funny thing about it, I was listening to a guy who was dealing with. He's working for the CIA. He was like, every relationship is an exchange. I was like, he said, the sooner we get to understanding that every relationship is built off an exchange of value. Now, whether it's social, financial, spiritual, whatever it is, it's an exchange. And just like that cycle, the better you are at understanding those exchanges, the better you are at positioning yourself to direct how the relationship is going to go.
That's okay. So you just said you want to talk about the boundaries for a second, right?
Boundaries, correct.
And let's get into that for a second. But I also want to talk about what you were talking about with this being an exchange. One of the things that they said, and we'll see which direction this takes us more, whether the boundaries or the exchange. The idea of the exchange. One of the things they said in the research lab for marriages is that one thing that really helps women be drawn into submitting and supporting and loving their husbands as when they get to have some influence over their husband. Okay, he used the word influence. And influence just simply meaning when your wife makes a suggestion about something, you're able to say, let's do that. Or she likes to do something and you find yourself You know, I got into this because that's what my wife does. It's actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like you're able to influence your wife. It's not always just.
Yeah.
I mean, your wife's able to. You're able to be influenced by your wife.
Yeah.
It's not always just. No, this is what I do.
Yeah.
She does her thing. I do my thing. Like that. You don't want that. No friendship wants that either. Where you never have any influence over your friend or something like that.
Exactly.
And so they find that as a huge deal.
Yeah.
Now, flipping the script for a second, talking about boundaries, right? Because we were coming out of this conversation of submission. If we're going to talk about boundaries, it's almost like we got to talk about the battles that come in relationships because people are struggling to walk in the roles that God has given them.
I agree.
So whether they're acknowledging the roles, just as much as we talked a lot about women not submitting, right? Just as much, so many men don't even try to lead.
Yeah.
Like maybe even more so, don't even try to lead. And we see that night was Isaiah 3 and Isaiah 4,
Yeah.
where we're talking about the men just gave up on trying to lead.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, oh my gosh! And so, and we see it now.
Yeah.
But it starts to add up when you start to say, wait a minute, men get flooded faster than women. Men are more prone to what's it called? Stonewalling than women are, and then men feel emotionally detached if their wives aren't being physically intimate with them. They start to feel emotional detachment there, and women often detach when they're not feeling emotional attachment from their. And it's wild because they've literally given themselves the catch-22.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
With that, and so boundaries become very healthy when those skirmishes and those conflicts come because of basically mismanaging the roles that are in a marriage. And so, but I'm going to talk about how important those boundaries are. So, what context would you really like to dive into where boundaries are so important?
I think for me, boundaries it's really like the standard, I think that's the key thing when I look at boundaries. I see a standard. It's like a wall. Okay, this is the church walls around here. This is where this building. Boundaries create comfort, create security, protection. Okay, so kind of for me, I want to be able to dive into when you're dealing with a wife. Obviously you're married. When you're dealing with a wife in a relationship, what boundaries do you see give her comfort? What boundaries have you set or standards have you seen set that allow for her to say, okay, I can move in this area and I have freedom to operate in this area without going out into the wild and getting eaten by a bear? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Let's take our friend Jim yesterday in our conversation yesterday.
Okay.
And he was talking about how he was having a conversation with his wife, and she started in on him, and so and he was like, I'm gonna go downstairs, and I'll let me know when you want to try to re-engage, and I'll come back and re-engage, but it ain't gonna be like this. And so she called him back up there, and he's like, let's go ahead, talk it out again. And she led into it, like, he was like, nope. Not rolling that way. I'm going to go back downstairs. You let me know when you want to re-engage, and we'll re-engage again. Now, I don't know exactly what his tone was like, but I do know the result of it. And some people might be watching this thinking that sounds condescending to act that way. I believe he was simply trying to keep peace in the situation.
Agreed.
Here's why I feel like whatever it was he was doing worked well. Because it worked. She eventually came down to where he was at, a place where she doesn't even like to be, and started speaking peaceably with him about the thing that they wanted to talk about. And they were actually able to have a productive conversation when so many of their conversations turn volatile very easily. And so that's huge. And so his boundary was, I'm not going to be talked to a certain way. Period. And I'm not going to yell at you for talking to me that way, because that's just going to yell and more. And I can't outfight you. I can't outfight my wife with words. Physically, sure, but we're not doing that, right?
Exactly.
So I can't outfight my wife in that sort of thing. But I also don't want to just run away either, because that leaves her feeling abandoned, both physically and spiritually, and that's terrible for a woman. And so that your boundary is saying, okay, you've hit my limit where I'm going to start to react in a way that is good for no one in this house. So I'm pulling the plug temporarily on this thing, and I'll be back in it later. That is a very important boundary. It's important that people understand that, and you said it already. You said half of it. Boundaries are for protection.
Yeah.
The other half of it is boundaries are not for punishment. Okay, so boundaries are for protection, not punishment. And you're not trying to punish your spouse and saying you don't get to talk to me anymore because you should learn how to talk to somebody first. And so then you cold shoulder them until you feel like talking again. Like that's not what a boundary is for. You know?
You know what? You just thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah,
That's good stuff.
yeah. It's designed to. Like you were talking about walls of the church or walls or whatever. We don't have spikes on our walls because we're not trying to attack people for getting too close. We're just trying to protect ourselves from, certain things. And that's how boundaries work in a marriage. And so when a man can understand his triggers well enough, and has learned on building resilience well enough, he can then set these boundaries and exude strength. Once again, women are drawn to strong people. We were having a conversation earlier.
Exactly.
Like, why does it seem like all these bad boys, can get women, at least, or the women are drawn to them?
Yeah.
Maybe not to marry, but at least drawn to them for the fun of it. Or I don't know what it is, but there's a strength to it, right?
It is.
But good men, can and should exude the same strength in very basic ways. It's just the example I gave earlier was it's as simple as saying, if you were to meet, you're a bachelor, right? If you were to meet a woman for the first time, and you hold the door open for her, you pull out a chair for her, and you let her know, hey, just so you know, I'm the kind of guy, I'm old-fashioned or man-fashioned, I don't care what you want to call it, but I hold doors and I pull out chairs and I do those sorts of things. And if you feel like that's not something that you want to do, and you feel like I'm stepping into your space as an independent woman or whatever, that's fine. We can just not waste each other's time.
Exactly.
That is a statement or position that shows conviction and resolve, which are two very strong things that women need to see, and it's a standard of strength. 100%.
That's great.
So when they see that, it's good.
Yeah, I like that, and I think that touches on healthy boundaries, healthy standards, healthy communication, and shows sign of growth and healing. That's and to me, I think that's where we need to be really focused on, and to be able to discern that difference, because we talked about bad boys. We've had our little stint. And so when you're dealing with that, it's like being able to discern that in the outcomes. Because I'm an outcome-driven individual.
Okay.
When I look at a situation, I want to go to the end of the matter. I say this all the time. What is the end of the matter? What is it? What is the outcome at the end of the day going to look like? And if I can't see and visualize it, then I don't want it. And what I realize is you describing that to even the young men, or just men in general out there. You have to realize, what is the end of the matter? If we're going to set these boundaries and we're communicating these healthy standards, and we're saying, okay, you know what? I appreciate you. If you're, this is who I am, and you articulate that well to a female, she has to then choose whether she wants to participate or not.
Right.
The outcome is all I want to understand the outcome, but I'm not outcome dependent. Yes.
Okay.
And I think that's a crucial discernment for men to be able to react and to
outcome dependent. I like that.
Yeah, to respond in a way so that we don't get frustrated when a woman chooses not to respond in a way that we're looking for. So an outcome dependent action for me is like, okay, I want her to do this, so I'm going to do this. And she's going to test us and say, no, I'm not going to do that because I want to see if you're going to respond this way. An outcome dependent person will be looking for the reaction, and when they don't get the reaction, they're going to act in a way that is, probably not seemly. You know what I'm saying? So for me, the goal will be to also as men to be able to say, okay, how can we conduct ourselves in a way where what some of these red pills call frame, where we're not even relying upon whether she responds the way we want to or not. We're going to do that regardless,
You used the word, I don't know if you slipped when you said it or you said it on purpose. You said frustrated, right? Now, I would have thought you meant to say frustrated or flustered, but then you said frustrated, and it was cool though because it combined two thing.
Yeah.
Flustered and frustrated. Like, was that on purpose or it just came out that way?
Flows like that.
No, but it was so good because we talk about men getting flustered or flooded, you know, is what we're talking, which we're more prone to. Yeah. And then also frustration and anger, things like that. I like frustrated.
We started a new word.
I'll tell you, we're putting that in the dictionary. Man, it operates very well. It's a great word. It makes a lot of sense, man. And so, so as we're thinking about boundaries and all that kind of stuff, and the exchange, I think one way to build on the concept of both is, you know, and leadership and submission and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so when you think of what helps to draw a woman into being a good partner for you, safety and security comes to mind.
Yep.
Okay, safety and security, most definitely. It's challenging for a man right now to provide a secure lifestyle for
and you know, and that's the challenge that I've seen so far. And I've been looking at cultures because I realize I've been studying cultures over a period of time. Originally, we were agricultural based, or communal based society, and then it was agricultural based society, and then industrial based society. Now we're in like a technical society.
Yeah. Now think about what you just said. Yeah. Industrial to technical.
Yeah.
That man, it's a huge jump. If you were industrially trained, and now all of a sudden you got to learn AI.
Exactly. Yeah. And
what are you gonna do?
That's the thing. When you're looking at the soft skills, it works well for women. That's why they've been elevating quickly. The industrial, hardworking, skilled man, he's basically getting pushed out. Except he's getting pushed more into the trades, obviously. So when you're looking at establishing the structure that's necessary for a healthy family, women need to be looking up towards their husband in some way, shape, or form. The original structure was very simple. You go work an industrial style job, you bring in industrial wages, the economy supported that, family structure was already in place, and you just, built off of that. Yeah. Now, because of the technical side through technology, the dynamic is totally different, especially as a single man. I see all the options online. I can scroll for days, any man can scroll for days, but you got to realize women are doing that. And when women are doing that, they're looking at what is their best option. And if they're looking at their best option, it wasn't just locally like it was around here back in the day. It's over the entire earth. And so now they have to say, what options can I obtain? And so they start dibbling and dabbling, trying to figure out what is their best option. But this is the catch-22 with women, is that they're unable to quickly discern whether the man is for them for marriage or for them for just pleasure.
And that's got to be hard to discern.
And that's hard to do.
I'd almost say that men, in a sense, have that same issue if they're a man that's coming from a position of a strong economic position, put it that way.
Exactly.
So does she really want me because she loves me, or she just loves the stability that it seems that I can provide?
Exactly.
And if I were to lose my job one day, get laid off or whatever, or just literally the industry shift and change, and now we have to live quite modest as opposed to even moderate, is that going to change?
And that's a concern with submission. Back to the point of trying to extract and get submission. When a man is trying to get submission from a woman, he has to come from a different these perspectives. Now, if he's coming from a perspective of God and the order of how things are submitted through God, there's a whole different manner of submission there. Now, if you're looking at other worldly means, which are more pronounced and easily seen and easily testable, then submission is like, okay, well, hop in the car, I'll open the door, go to the house, I'll buy you a meal. All these things that women can easily submit to because there's evidence, it's quick.
Those are quick little parts of submission.
Exactly. Yeah. So for me, we have the real submission though from a woman is, can she see the man's character and value? If she can see that and understand it and then know how to yield to that, then she can actually begin to want, even desire to submit. But most women don't even understand how to look for character and value nowadays. ways.
Now think about something for a second. Let me present this to you. You've heard of the 5 love languages, right?
Yep.
Okay. I was on, I don't know, Truity.com or something like that.
Yeah.
And there's another something that talks about love languages and it raises the number to 7. Okay. Now think of the traditional 5 love languages. I think you have, what do you have? You have acts of service.
Touch.
You have touch. You have words of affirmation.
Yeah.
You've got time spent. And you've got, what else is there?
Words of affirmation, quality time, touch,
There's
acts of service, and gifts.
Oh yeah, gifts. Yeah, thank you. Gifts. Okay. So now they're saying that 5 isn't enough. I'm not sure if I agree with them. Actually, I'm pretty sure I don't agree with them. But that 5 isn't enough. There's some other things, and the one I'm going to hone in on for a second is basically a financial security type of love. Like a woman, there are some people, not just women, but it's predominantly women.
Yeah.
I guess based on the research. Okay.
Yeah.
There's some people that one of the love languages they speak is financial security.
Yeah.
And if your wife happens to be, or the woman that you're seeking after happens to be someone, if this is true, doesn't this mean that some women only feel loved if you can provide for them financially?
And that's the thing for me, going in the family.
Something sounds wrong with that, right?
Yeah, well, that's when you look at the world standard and you're looking at God's standard. So this is the thing I found, and I found this to be true. If women are looking for provisions, okay, so they call it a provider man.
Yeah.
So a provision is basically the ability to access or acquire resources, okay? And that allows for them security because then they know that they will have something for the production of children, the sustainment of their life, and make it easier for them, okay? So this is kind of their rationalization from my understanding. When you're dealing with that, women will seek out a man to provide for them, and they'll test for that.
Okay, yeah, here.
And so in their testing for that, they're looking to see whether he can acquire resources or have the ability to present as he has acquired resources.
Now the thing is, that's fair.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. Like if a woman is designed for safety and security, a man really should provide that. He
Yeah.
absolutely should. I think what the issue is
It's
all
this
of that
thing.
should be a survival instinct
Exactly.
rather than a basis of love.
And that's the thing, but this is another side of it, is that when you're dealing
Hang on
with
one second. Let me get all that cough out of there.
Yeah.
Jeez, oh peas. Write that time down real quick. All right, go ahead.
All right, so there's a side of women. This is where you get kind of dark.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right, first of all, disclaimer.
Disclaimer, guys.
We're doing the best we can here, okay? All right.
But yeah, there's a social scientist who was studying women and how they were reacting to men who were in war. Okay.
Okay.
And so what happened during that time is that these men were from professors to engineers and all this other stuff, but they were all hurled into some Soviet camps. The man studied each and every relationship.
Okay.
And he found out after about 2 months that most women were unable to sustain the relationship with their husbands because they were in a deficit in their position, which would be status, which can be equated to finances.
Okay.
So because they were in these camps, most of the women left their husbands and started seeking out other men for security. So what it gets into is the social dynamic, the nature of women that a lot of men do not understand or know. And what I find is that once I started realizing that nature, I was like, ooh, so this is a real thing.
Yeah.
But there was only a few women out of the out of the thousands of men that were in there, that they were consistently coming in to check in on them, to bring them food, to bring them resources, to argue to get them out of the camps. So there are dedicated women out there, but they're few and far between. And so for me, the key thing is understanding that nature of women, and when you're dealing with the financial love language, that could be one of the things is provision, because it's at that point it's survival, you know.
Yes.
And so if you understand that nature of women, it's like on the Titanic back in the day, women first, children 1st. When they see a dire situation, a lot of times they're going to choose themselves and their children first.
Yeah.
And so understanding that every man needs to walk into a relationship knowing that off rip automatically, that if there's a dire situation, you know, more than likely, you know, unless you have a super dedicated, hardcore, well-trained wife, you know, that she's gonna choose herself and her children over you. And
Well, then let's think of that brings us to the last point then. One second, let me just double check this camera. Right here. See how we're looking. Make sure it didn't stop on us. Bro, it's still recording. Praise God.
awesome, yeah.
Praise God. All right, so this will be the last thing.
I would like to. That finances is pretty tough one though.
We will have to talk about finances a little bit more.
Yeah, 'cause that's a huge one nowadays, man.
No, absolutely, man. Easily.
Yeah, I think that the key thing I want to dive into was really the vision that's associated with it too.
With the finances?
Yeah, because with finances, I find, you know,
Hold
personally.
on. Let me tell this thing to start recording. And I might say that. So you want to dive a little more. Into the finances part.
Yeah, real quickly, yeah. Because the key thing for me when dealing with finances is a man has to have a vision and a plan that a woman can attach to. And some people...
Safety and security once again.
Exactly. So once an individual male says, okay, this is what you can attach to, she can then start expecting things. Okay. And that's when she can start testing for those things. But if a man never explains or gives a vision for that, really starting off with himself, then it's hard for her to sustain that process of being with him. She wants direction in that.
Let's fall back into our roles for a second. You know, me as a husband, I'm living out what you're saying. Right, I'm living it out.
Awesome.
Right now.
Yeah.
You know where, but I have a wife, not a girlfriend.
Yeah.
You know, so when she sees that finances aren't as strong as she wants them to be in hopes that they could be, or where she can't be as free as she wants to be, you can watch her countenance fall from that. When I say countenance, guys, I mean,
smiled at.
You know, a little, even stronger than your facial expression, but related to your facial expression, and watching just kind of almost the whole tone of your body just drop. Yeah. And it's heavy. So I've struggled for years with feeling like, she should have married somebody else, somebody who makes more money, maybe somebody worked at the mill over here who can get, 40 hours of overtime and all that kind of stuff. Like, I'm like, maybe that's what would be better for her or something like that. That's how I used to feel, and all that sort of thing. And so when we talk about finances, you're right in the sense of, people really need people need a vision. A woman needs a vision to cling to. And I'm gonna tell you guys, do not think that you should be able to work 8 hours a day, make modest living, and then sit at home and do nothing else. No. Like that will not be that will not and shouldn't be accepted from your wife when if the family is struggling, but you're saying, hey, I put in my 40 hours this week. And so, and nowhere in the Bible it says you need to only work 40 hours. That is an American society thing, and maybe a few other societies. But like a 40-hour work week, no, you can put in more work. Yeah. Now learn to be wise with it, learn to be strategic about it. Yeah. Once again, like you said, have a vision that your wife can get behind, and whatever it is you're lacking, she can help you with that. But man, that's what people need. Hold on 1 second. Let's pause for a second because I think I need something to drink. Sure. For you guys. Woo!
It's good stuff, though.
Yeah, it really is, man. It really is. Some, man. Orange juice or something here. I hate to cut it off. And I was just talking about how, you know, that's why it's important that men dive in and make their, you know, they're not just submitting to 40-hour work weeks. They're going in and they're trying to make something of themselves. And you're about to say something.
Yeah, we're dealing with, and that's the thing we're dealing with work is, you know, God gives us all gifts, witty ideals, understanding how to maneuver. What I believe, that's where it comes down where men, we have to begin to work together.
Okay,
Because work is not established in a way where it is conducive for healthy relationships that naturally develop. You have to be very intentional, very structured today with your time and energy to be able to manage a healthy relationship. And so, and then at the same time, again, you not only have to manage a healthy relationship, but develop yourself simultaneously. And develop a relationship with your children, increase your skill set, you know. There's
Man, you know this is why guys ain't trying to get married, man.
That's it.
You're talking about I gotta take care of my wife, gotta take care of my kids. You didn't even say nothing about kids yet, and then you've got to all the while still developing yourself, developing your skill set.
Yeah.
You know, reading books, stuff like that.
all this, and that's the thing for me, assessing the level and time of energy, and then overcoming distractions, past hurt. We just talked about all that stuff. There's so much that has to go involved and get involved for a man to properly lead without passing down generational curses, without passing down hurt, and being able to functionally, you know, move in a relationship, all while knowing potentially towards the end that he could potentially get divorced and lose half his stuff. So a man needs to. So
What are you saying? Get prenups? Is that what you're saying?
I got a whole system I've been working on, you know, and you know we'll talk about that in private. But yeah, prenups is one of the simplest way of doing it. But the reality of it is, this is what men have to step into. And you got to think about it. This is what Christ had to do. He knew he was stepping into a relationship with people that were going to be rebellious, stubborn, stiff-necked, and he still said, you know what, I love you. I'm going to go ahead and do this right. But that's the thing about, I
don't think Jesus had a prenup on us.
he didn't have no prenup on us,
No,
no.
sure didn't.
No, but he did have, you know, rules that we have to still
You know,
follow.
that's right.
Exactly. So, you know, there's things that
Boundaries.
boundaries. And that's what he set up for us. And I think for us as men, we're dealing with the finances and stuff like that. and a vision for the future, we need to consult God. We need to ask God, what do you want for me? What do you want for this household? How can we move together and build? And that's where men submit to their head, which is Christ. And Christ gives us direction, and then we can then take that servant mindset and then lead by demonstrating that to our wives.
So then the last thing I want to talk about, which builds, I think it's going to build off of that, is this idea of love, lust, and I added another one, it's not an L though, but love, lust, and survival. You eventually start to realize what's love, and then what's just lust or infatuation or whatever. And then a third thing that I haven't even considered very much until our conversation today, what part of it is just survival? You know, for someone like me who took it to heart, where my wife was, you know, basically wanting me to just make more money, and I'm like, I'm doing the best I can. I got 2 full-time jobs. What do you want me to do? Understanding that that's not necessarily her having a lack of love for me. Her female survival instincts are kicking in. And so I need to stop being a baby and freaking out that, hey, she doesn't love me. No, her survival instincts are activated right now, you know? And so, so we had to have a conversation a little bit about what's love, what's lust, what's survival, because finances is one of the big triggers that that starts to mess relationships up. It's huge, you know, and it's one of the major reasons why people don't step into marriage, because they don't know if everything will be okay. They'll live together first, which has a higher rate of divorce than having not lived together before marriage, which some people still don't know, but go look it up. It's a 75% divorce rate for couples who lived together before they were married. Last time I checked that stat was about 5 years ago. Maybe it's changed, I don't know. 5 years isn't a long time, so I doubt it's changed very much. And so there's some conversation as to why that could be, but so we've got to talk about love, lust, and finance or survival, which we're connected to finances. So how I guess one of the questions I have is, you know, so you as a single man, okay, how will you know that it is love that's driving you to marry a woman rather than lust or survival instincts of, you know, it's time for me to have a family, it's time this, it's time that, you know, how will you know?
Yeah, I think that is a great question, because I've been challenged with that for so long, because I've had plenty of opportunities to, you know, marry and get in a relationship with women, and
y'all didn't know Ryan was pulling ladies like that, you know what I'm saying?
Well, see, the thing about me is I see the situation before it happens, so it's like I begin with the end in mind, so I can talk myself out of a relationship like that. I can sit there like, oh yeah, this and this and that, yeah, this. I can do this and this is not going to work. And I just move on.
You just play the whole game of chess.
Literally in my head, you know. So I can assess that, but what I understand, and now that I've matured to a state where I can see things from multiple different perspectives and have a semi-successful rate of predicting what's going to move forward, what I find is that the most important thing is being able to hear their spirit, you know, and this is kind of like intuitive in a sense. And what that means to me is, like, if I'm sitting down and I'm talking to a woman, her spirit is in line with what we're trying to do automatically. It's not even a thought of like, I just have to check all these boxes off. I'm sensing her intention, and I'm sensing her ability to desire for growth in alignment with God. So to me, the most important thing a man can do is be in line with God himself. And then once he's in line with God, he has to be able to articulate what he desires to see. God will give you direction, because God has already shown me some things. And every time he shows me some things, I see how the enemy tries to go in and, you know, mess it up. You know? So for me, I think the key thing for men is being able to, again, not only know yourself, have a deep intimate relationship with God, but also then extrapolate from a personal relationship what God wants you to do. And He will guide you to that point where you're going to be, okay, yeah, this is the woman. Because this is what I asked for, this is what I'm looking for, and I'm moving in this direction. And it's going to happen. And I don't have to sit there and chase after her because I'm telling you, I've seen it time and time again. Yeah. Every time I ask for one thing, God will give it to me, but then He says, is this what you really want? Because I can get what I want, but is it in line with what God's will is for me?
So if I can put some words in your mouth, you can spit it back out if I don't have it right. It's almost like you're saying that if a man first decides and does the work of being in a good relationship with God, he will be drawn to a woman who also is in a good relationship with God, and it'll be easy to recognize love there because you're falling in love with someone who's already on the same vision that you are, because they're trying to be clean. They're trying to cling to a relationship with God. Everything else outside of that, even if there are differences, all of those differences still fall in line with the united vision of being close to God.
I agree. That's perfectly said. And that to me is the center piece of how I see relationships. And so I understand God has a purpose for me. He has a calling on my life. And my goal is to stay focused on that. How and whatever situation I find myself in, I know God says 1,000 will fall on my right hand or 10,000 in my left, but no harm shall come nigh my dwelling. My mind sets on, okay, not everybody's going to be able to walk this path with me. So as I walk this path, there's only going to be a few, and so I know automatically in relationship with a woman that is going to be aligned, she's going to already be moving with that same mindset, and she's going to align herself with God. And you know, I've been through some stuff, you see what I'm saying? So I'm not sure, you know, when you're looking at being a minister, you know, because I've done ministry, and you're walking in the Spirit of the Lord, it's a challenge. And one of the things that I've noticed is that I find most of the time is they're going to be an attack right after that. So if I have identified a woman and I'm assessing it, then there's going to be an attack. It's automatic. And it's for God to say, okay, you can endure this, and then I will reward you for that. And so for me, it's from a Christian male, single bachelor perspective, that's some of the perspectives that I've seen along the way. You know, not everybody is called to do the same things I've done, you know, but I realize the majority of it, they can actually then obtain and be more refined than me, because if they acquire these skills and this position mindset sooner, then you know, they can get in their 20s. Why it's taking me a little longer? So for me, the goal is to be able to clearly develop that relationship with God, clearly assess the direction and the vision that God will have me to move in, and then endure that process until God says, here's the woman that I want to walk with you in this.
Now I was thinking about the married side of it. Say someone, let's just say someone didn't hyperanalyze the woman's relationship with God, or maybe for himself, his relationship with God was not a priority. Now they're already married, okay? And, you know, like I tell my children, because I've got grown children, you know, be choosy now, because the rules change when you're married.
Oh, yeah.
You know, once you're married, the idea is you don't get to step away, you know, and try something different and stuff like that. You know, divorce rates, like we talked about earlier in the show, divorce rates show that you are spiraling towards less and less success in marriage the moment you get a divorce the first time, the second time. I'm not saying there's no one out there who doesn't have a happy second marriage. Obviously, that'd be untrue. But unfortunately, the statistics show that your chances get worse, right? And so pulling out won't solve your problem later on. So be choosy now, but once you're in it, so let's talk about now you're in it, okay? And one expression that I've heard a lot, I haven't heard it much recently in these years, but the idea of there not being love in the marriage anymore, you know, or the fact that one doesn't seem to physically desire the other. That's usually on the side of women, but I've seen it just as much with I've seen it also a lot with men too, where women are finding themselves like freaked out that their man does not want to have sexual relations with them. You know what I'm saying? And we're finding a big part of the issue is, let's say it, pornography.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Huge.
now pornography is everybody's fault. Okay, yeah. Pornography is almost everybody's fault.
Yeah.
People that, I mean, we're talking about algorithms that notice if a large-chested woman comes across your screen and you didn't swipe it away in less than 2 seconds, then they know you wanted to see it and they keep pushing it out there. And since everything is about money, the more you're seeing things, the more ads they can show you for those things. Oh my goodness, it's all about money. And so, yes. And so pornography has made its way into our society in a major way. It's made its way into marriages, and it's destroying them from the inside out. So lust is coming against marriage. Even though love's supposed to be saving your marriage, lust is coming against it. And it's really important that men have that under control. But when I say pornography is everybody's fault, I'm also talking about those spouses that withhold physical intimacy from their spouses. The Bible says something very, very, very clearly. And so many people don't like when I bring this up, which makes me mad. Because I'm like, bro, I didn't even come up with this. Like, I could have, maybe. I don't know. I don't know. But I didn't come up with this. This is in the Bible. And you go to 1 Corinthians chapter 7. And anybody who's had this conversation biblically should already know where I'm going. Okay? And 1 Corinthians chapter 7, and it says when you get there, you know, for context, the Corinthian church had questions for Paul. I mean, these were people that were steeped in, you know, fornicative, idolatrous worship. You know, like it was literally part of their religious culture to go and have like, you know, random sex offs with people, and it's just like that was a part of their worship, and for anyone saying I want to find a church like that, get out of here, man. So that was their issue, and so after hearing about how Christians do this oh so differently, they had questions for Paul, and they're like, okay, Paul, so we need you to teach us about marriage and sex and all this kind of stuff because it's apparently. What's apparently normal to us, y'all think is wilding out. So help us understand. And so he starts off saying, now concerning the things whereof you wrote unto me, it is good for a man not to touch a woman. So this is his first response. Okay? Like to all the questions that they had, let me just tell you. It's probably good if a man doesn't touch a woman. So now he's just cut off. Because I mean, I've seen we were in our men's study, we were doing one of the pastors around here. We were doing his marriage book, and it was a raw thing, and I believe he dove too deep into stuff. But anyway, some people have questions about that deep stuff, and he's like, okay, I'll just tell you, it's good for a man not to touch a woman. Nevertheless, to avoid fornication. Okay. Let every man have his own wife, and let every woman have her own husband. Once again, to avoid fornication. Because Paul is acknowledging that we are fleshly human beings that have a desire for physical intimacy with another human being. Okay, it's what we want to do. And not only that, let's be honest. Even in today's day and age, we just want the feeling that is of the culmination and the apex of arousal. We want to experience that. Whether it's with somebody, by ourselves, all that stuff. That's what people want to experience. And so he's saying, don't touch a woman, but if you're trying to avoid fornication, which is sexual relations outside of marriage or sexual immorality, then you need to. Every man needs to find a wife, and every wife needs to find a woman needs to find a husband. But then drop down, and he says, verse 5, and I'm skipping good stuff here. I'm just not trying to make this a full Bible study on this. Defraud ye not one the other, except it be with consent for a time. Defraud meaning don't deprive. Don't deprive your spouse because what's going to happen? That Satan tempt you not for your incontinency, meaning don't deprive your spouse because Satan's going to come in and tempt them for the lack of self-control. Do not serve your husband up on a platter to Satan by withholding sexual intimacy from him. Don't do that. That's a sin against God, man. And same thing for wives doing that thing, husbands doing that thing to their wives. You know, it's a sin against God.
And I think that's the thing when we talk about social dynamics versus covenant understanding. You know, social dynamics. We talk about every relationship has an exchange, and when a woman is insecure in her position and ability to, like you said, influence in the relationship, I believe they have the tendency to withhold, to seek some form of control or some form of validation or whatever have you. The reality of it is, I agree with you. The relationship is if the focus is off, then people start reacting, and it becomes a domino effect. So if the focus is on Christ, then we can actually manage the relationship dynamics. What I find though is, like, hearing other women talk, because I pay attention to a degree.
To a degree.
To a degree, because I don't want to get into everybody's business. But I realize is that, some of these women, they're looking for some form of security, and they will use sex or the lack thereof to try to control the man to get him to get in line with what she wants. And for me, I think that's why, men, we have to be able to articulate healthy boundaries, self-control, and let her know that that's not going to control us. But the challenge is that if you're in a marriage and you've married specifically to avoid fornication, guess what happens? That becomes a very strong tool.
Yeah.
And it's like leverage, to the hilt. And if she knows that, guess what she can do? She can pull that lever, and the enemy says, oh, pull the lever, go ahead, stop that. And that causes problems. But I think women, they because of their ignorance in the overall scheme of things, they don't understand how that affects men.
I think you're hitting something important there, because I haven't noticed so much the manipulation, but I have noticed the ignorance. Like the ignorance of, I'm not saying women are stupid. I'm saying the lack of understanding of that you don't realize how much hurt you're doing, how much harm you're causing by withholding this thing. You don't realize the damage that you're doing. And some women, even once you tell them, they don't care. Some wives, they don't care. They're like, my emotional needs are being met. And so we talked about this earlier. Here's how the cycle goes. It is a husband shows strong desire for a wife and gives her safety and security and all these things. And in turn, she responds to that with opening up herself physically to him, and they can go in together and blah, 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 and all that stuff. And over time, as he stops trying as hard to be emotionally connected to her, she feels that disconnection and then closes herself up physically from him. Once she starts to close herself up from him physically, because she's feeling a lack of emotional connection, he was dependent on that physical intimacy for his emotional connection. Women oftentimes think it's just some animalistic instinct, but no, men actually, even if men don't realize it, that they've done studies on this, and men draw their emotional connection oftentimes in large form from the physical intimacy they're able to have. And once the woman pulls that physical intimacy, now he feels emotionally abandoned. He's like, I'm rejected, not abandoned, emotionally rejected right now. And so now he doesn't want to give to her because he's been emotionally rejected. She doesn't want to give to him because he's disconnected her, abandoned her emotionally. So now who's going to start the cycle again? Because you are stuck.
That's it. Yes, well, and that's the thing that I've seen and I've heard. That, it comes down to being able to be aware of it as the first aspect. To be aware of that cycle. To be aware. To be aware.
Learn.
Because if we're not aware of it, we're just like, I had this going. This is.
You just finger point.
Exactly.
If you're not aware of the cycle, you just finger point. It's your fault because you're not connecting with me. No, I'm not connecting with you because you're not connecting with me. And they're both right. And this is where our program comes in, our marriage drill program and all that sort of thing. Which is that, hey, we got to go first.
Got to.
We have men have to go first. Otherwise, you'll be dancing around forever, right down to the courthouse and those divorce papers. Like
I've seen it happen.
Right, someone's got to go first.
At least 3 times.
And unfortunately, someone's got to go first, and it might as well be us men. We're not the weaker vessels. That's not us, and so we might as well then step into the role that God has given us. If we want a wife that'll step into submission, we better step into sacrificial leadership, which means the sacrifice is I'm going to get less of what I want, and she's going to get more of what she wants, and it's not fair. But I'm the sacrificer.
Yeah, and that right there, that's why I applaud you in the Men's Hero course, is because you're dealing with a very tough topic, man. Many men have failed in addressing this topic. Men of all ages. And for you to stay in the pocket and to keep on working this thing until you can actually see clearly, it's like going through a horrific storm and then coming out the end and say, okay, I can finally take a breather. But it's still there. You know, the wreckage is still there. You see it all around us. To be able to assess these things and be able to share that with men is saving lives, saving marriages, saving children. The suffering that people are going through quietly, and the children seeing the suffering is just traumatic. And so we have what we're doing. What I love what we're doing right here is being able to bring that out in a way to articulate it so that men can actually say, you know what, I'm not alone. I can figure this out. We can work together. There's a group of men out here that are they're working towards solving this problem, and then see the results in the future. Sometimes you gotta plant trees you may never sit underneath the shade of.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so for me, I think that's what, you know, being able to have men who are addressing these topics and saying, hey, you know, we're dealing with, you know, the marriage, and here's a cycle. Here's a system that you can actually break. Start here, you know. And to me, that's wonderful. I applaud you on that.
I appreciate that, man. I think it's definitely important.
Yeah.
I think there are people that are giving up on marriages that they don't have to,
Yeah.
for reasons that they'll find in their second marriage will pop up again.
Yeah.
You know,
It's gonna be there.
Yeah, it's gonna be there again, and then they're gonna, and then I've seen it.
Yeah.
They end up saying, maybe it was me.
Yeah.
And the right answer is, well, of course part of it was you. It just wasn't all you.
Yeah.
And if you handle your stuff the first time, you'll pull the best out of your partner.
Yes.
And if your partner happens to be someone who is highly resistant to any of your draws, and if the worst thing happens, you can go into your next marriage already primed to do the right things.
Yeah.
You know, because it's typically a wife, a spouse is not gonna just not respond to such good leadership, such good qualities of man. They're not just gonna not respond to it.
Yeah, I agree. You know, you mentioned something about pulling the best out of your relationship. The first thing that came to my mind is cultivation. When you're trying to grow something, it's all about creating the right atmosphere. Knowing what's going to attack what you're actually trying to grow. You know, I grew a little.
Yes, knowing what's going to attack what you're trying to grow. Yes, I just wanted to make sure we said that again.
Yeah, and thank you. And to me, it's like we have to be able to understand what is attacking this relationship. How are we wanting it to grow? That goes back to the vision. It goes back to preparation of ourselves and our heart. Because I've seen myself and other men that I've dealt with, like you said, I could be the problem. I'm causing the problem because I'm withholding this particular area. And so for me, being able to understand how that attack occurs from outside the marriage and from within the marriage, you know, is so crucial. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And so I think we'll get ready to wrap it up here.
Yeah.
And we'll say just importantly, you know, love, lust, and as far as love, lust, and survival, you know, men need to not mistake what's a survival instinct for a love language. I'm going to go ahead and just throw out there, I disagree with financial security being a love language. I think it's a survival instinct in women, and men have to be able to respond to the varying measures of intensity where a wife needs to feel safe and secure in a certain way. And if you happen to have a wife that her security bucket is a little bit bigger and it needs to be filled a little bit more for her to feel safe, then that's just what you got. It doesn't make her materialistic. It means that her instincts are a certain way. We can talk about materialistic at a different time, you know. And lust, just because you got married doesn't take care of the lust situation. We have a lady here at our church who will often talk to married people, and she struggles with, she's single, she struggles with lust sometimes and not sleeping around or whatever. And she'll say, it's easy for you guys have spouses. And I would say, I think it's actually harder because yes, if we're operating healthy, yes, we have a place to put all of that. But oftentimes marriages aren't healthy in that department. So then it actually feels worse because I literally have someone who I'm supposed to be able to do this with, and it's not happening.
Yeah.
That's different than not having it there. It's literally in the bed next to me,
Yeah.
and it's not happening. Like
Yeah.
that's the situation if someone was dealing with that lack of sexual
Wow,
intimacy.
you
know?
just brought out something I did not understand it too. You just said it, because you can have something right next to you, and it's like still so far away. And I think that's why it's so important. It's like being able to understand how can we avoid these situations? How can we prepare to articulate or maneuver? What skill sets do we need to have? Because everything requires some form of knowledge, and if we don't, if we don't have, my people perish due to lack of knowledge.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I think that's why as we advance in this Man's Hero course and in these discussions, is acquiring these levels of knowledge, being articulated, put in a concise format that you're going to be building, which is awesome. I really appreciate that. And then being able to offer it to the masses who want to participate in solving those problems, because it's worth the value.
Yeah.
It is worth the value. I know you see going through divorce, you see health-related issues that are associated with not being able to communicate. There's all type of things that go along with trying to solve these problems. If you don't take your time and sit in the pocket, then they're going to cost you one way or another.
Yeah.
And to me, when you're preparing this resource, it's going to save so many men from falling into the trap of thinking they're just a problem or not being prepared enough to solve the problem.
Yeah. And that's the plan. And I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking forward to watching you as you've absorbed all this information in all these different places.
Yeah.
Because you've been absorbing information since before you get connected with me.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see how God then applies that to marriage. Obviously, challenges are still going to be there. There ain't enough preparing you can do in the world to make it so that all of a sudden your marriage is a coast.
It's not gonna be no coast.
It ain't gonna be like that. But that's good. So I appreciate the time, man. We'll do it again.
Appreciate it again.
I'm just going to say, I do have a Marriage Hero course. If any of you ever want a chance to see what steps you can take to give your marriage the best possible chance it can have by you being the man that you're supposed to be, I've got a link to the course in my channel. I also have a link to a freebie where if you want to see what are the 5 things that come against marriage the hardest and ways to deal with it, I give that information out for free. So just click the link in the description and you'll be able to share your email to get that. So appreciate you guys.
It is.
Woo!
Good stuff.
Man, appreciate you, brother.
Awesome.
Every
Man.
time.
Yeah, it's good stuff, man. It's good stuff. Yeah. It's all gonna work out, man. Where's this chair? Where'd you get these chairs?
I just pulled these from up top.